All right, let's go ahead and solve percents problems. And to do that, we're going to start with a percent equation. So we'll represent a percent equation as a proportion. So it's an equation where percent is equal to an equivalent ratio. So for example, we zoom in a little bit here. 60% is 60 over 100. And we could simplify that at 3/5. Since that equation 60 over 100 equals 3/5, shows a percent equal to an equivalent ratio. We call it a percent proportion. You have an amount and base equals percent over 100. So let's see how we can apply that, right? Well, let's see here how we would translate a problem like this. Translate to a proportion. What number is 75% of 90? What number is 75%? So I know a lot of students try to memorize some weird stuff, but let's just try to understand. What number is the amount out of 90? And that's the base. So that's where we have the amount over the base. The percent is easy. It's just 75 over 100. And so there's our equation right there. And then once we have it as an equation, we just cross multiply and we're done. We can solve it. So what number is 40% of 85? Of is the base. Of, that's our whole piece, right? 40 over 100 equals n over 85. B, 19 is 25% of what number? Of is the base. So that's why I have a variable in the denominator, 19 out of n or x or whatever variable you want, 25 over 100. What percent of 27 is 9? Of 27, that's the base. 9, what percent? N out of 100. So we have, that's the hardest part is the setup. Once we have the setup, then we could easily just figure this out, right, through cross multiplication. 80 times 45 turns out to be 3,400 equals 100n. Divide both sides by 100, or we can just see that's just going to be n is 34. So it's 34 out of 85. This one here, you get 25n is equal to, in this case, 1900. Divide both sides by 25, right, to solve for n. 1900 divided by 25 turns out to be 76. In this case, you get 27n is equal to 900. N is going to be equal to, in this case, when you divide, you're going to get a never-ending decimal, 33.3. So 33%, right? I could also have seen that as 1/3. So I could have solved it that way too. If you noticed, again, 27 is equal to 1/3. That would have worked also. We can also visualize, right, these representations, and I like to use bars to do that. And it gets hard to see a little bit, but you might see better in the textbook when we look at that. But we can see some visual representations here. As we try to solve the problem, right? What we do is your bar is the whole. It's what it's out of. And so you could see some bars here that we could use to solve these problems. And once you write that bar, so for example, in that C part, what percent of 27 is 19? So you draw your bar, right? Your whole is 27. That's equivalent to 100%. Sorry for my writing. And then 9, that's 27. And then 9 is here. Here's 27. There's your 9. And so you're looking for, right, what percent goes here. That's what we're looking for. N percent goes there, right? And then once you have it, you can then just write the equation. You could say 27 over 9 is equal to 100 over n. Or I could have said 9 over 27 is equal to n over 100. You could write it multiple ways to solve this problem. Technically, you could also say 9 over n equals 27 over 100, right? A lot of stuff, but those would kind of change the context, but you could solve it that way. So let's finish this example here using that idea here. So you can see all these drawings here. So hopefully you can focus around it. But 125% of 25 is what number? So you could see here, the 25 is the base out of 100%. I'm looking for 125%, so that's above 100, and I'm trying to find the number that corresponds to it. It's like a ratio. That's what we're doing. N over 25 is 125 over 100. So we could solve the problem that way after you kind of drawn that out. And then once we multiply, then once you have the setup, that's the thing. You have 100 N is equal to 3125. So N in this case is equal to 3125. So 3125 is 125% of 25. So done on that one. How about B? 6.5% of what number is $1 or $1.56? So I'm looking for where's my B? Oh, right here. So I have 6.25%. Here's 100%. 156 goes with the 625 of what number? That's what I'm looking for. And then you set it up. You could see you're going to get N equals 24. And then I did the drawing kind of for this problem here. What percent? Oh, no, I didn't. What percent of 72 is 9? You could also just think about it. What percent? N over 100 equals 9 over 72 and cross multiply. So that's another way to kind of, again, think about that. You may not need to draw the box, which I do like the box though. I know 72 is there. That's 100 there, right? Here's 9 here. And so I'm looking for the N percent. So that's where I can get 79 over 72 equals N over 100, something like that. So just keep that in mind. Or again, 12.5%.